Hey, everybody. Last night when I made the Red Bowmore video, I kind of forgot about the big news of that day because it had been a tough day for me and I kind of forgot. But this is big news, so I do kind of feel like if I ignored it, that would just be weird. So, yesterday morning, right before I left, I got a message from one of my friends saying that the Bears got Cutler. I thought maybe he was joking around, but I had to go to school at that moment, so when I got there a little while later, I was able to look it up real quick, and yep, we have a huge trade on our hands. Jay Cutler has been sent to the Chicago Bears along with a 5th round draft pick, the 140th overall pick in 2009, and in return the Broncos have received Kyle Orton, the 18th overall pick in the upcoming draft, a first-round pick in the 2010 draft, we don't know where that will be yet, and a third-round pick, 84th overall in 2009. Now, I have for a while really been hoping that this Jay Cutler situation would blow over because it is so stupid. Josh McDaniels never should have tried to trade Jay Cutler. That whole thing was retarded. Jay Cutler should have gotten over it a long time ago. Pat Bowlen and the Denver Bronco organization should never have hired Josh McDaniels in the first place, I don't think. But we reached the point of no return, and Jay Cutler had to be traded. Now, even though we know, everybody knew that the Broncos were going to have to trade Jay Cutler because he didn't want to play for them anymore. Even though we knew that Jay Cutler was, asking for a trade and that the Broncos had no choice, the Bears still had to give up a ton to get him. They gave up 2 first-round picks, and I think both those first-round picks are going to be somewhere in the middle of that round, and a third-round pick, and their starting quarterback. And Kyle Orton is not atrocious or anything. I'll get into that in a second, but anyway, I've been trying to process this trade for a little while. I've heard conflicting viewpoints from a bunch of different people about how they felt about this trade, and I'll say this. I think that if Jay Cutler reaches his full potential, if he gets to his ceiling, which I think is way up here because I'm a big Jay Cutler fan, he is well worth 2 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and Kyle Orton. Well worth that. That's no problem. However, how is he going to reach that potential, his ceiling, when Ron Turner is his offensive coordinator? Ron Turner, I think that's his name. As near as I can tell, he sucks. Excuse me. And how is he going to do it when Devin Hester and some random scrub are his starting wide receivers? Who are they going to have him throw to? I mean, the Bears have a good running game with Matt Forte and possibly some other people. They have good tight ends with Greg Olsen and Desmond Clark. They have an okay offensive line. If they're depending on Orlando Pace for offensive line help, they might be in for a rude surprise because I don't see how Orlando Pace is going to stay healthy this year. But either way, their offensive line's okay. But their receivers, you got Devin Hester, Marty Booker, Rasheed Davis. Who's it going to be? I don't know. That's one thing. I mean, Jay Cutler, I think he's going to be an awesome quarterback. I think he's really talented. I'm a big fan of Jay Cutler, but in Denver, he had 2,000-yard receivers, several other capable receivers like Brandon Stokely. He had a good tight end in Tony Scheffler. He had a running game that kept losing people, and Denver would keep plugging people in that were able to produce at a reasonable level. And he was coached by Mike Shanahan, and was about to be coached by Josh McDaniels, 2 offensive gurus. Now he's going to play for a defensive-minded team that employs Ron Turner, who is whatever the opposite of an offensive guru would be. I don't know. As for the other side, the Broncos, I know a lot of Broncos fans were a little upset about this whole thing, but that's 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick. You're going to be able to do a lot of things with those, especially if the Bears do really bad this year, which is reasonable to expect. I don't think it'll happen, but it could. And Kyle Orton, he was putting up okay numbers. If you go look at his numbers last year, he did some good things, even though he was hurt for a while. I mean, he was a little inconsistent. He had some bad games, but he showed some stuff. So I'm going to say that I think Kyle Orton maybe could be an underrated element of this trade. If you put him in the Denver offense with those receivers, those tight ends, that offensive line, Denver has a real nice offensive line, and that running game, which I think will be better this year, add to that Josh McDaniels, who's supposed to be an offensive genius, and he could end up looking real good. So there's a possibility here that Denver's offense and their passing attack will not fall off too much because of this trade. Because Kyle Orton is not atrocious or anything. He's not Tavares Jackson. He's not Sage Rosenfels. He's okay. And when you add to all the picks that Denver got, because they got a lot of picks, I think Denver wins this trade. Now, as for what these 2 players think, I actually managed to get into the room and interview these 2 guys right after they learned they were getting traded. I unfortunately lost my transcript, but I did keep these pictures. So I was in the room with Kyle Orton when he learned he was getting traded to Denver, and here's the picture. I'll put it up right now. And I also was in the room with Jay Cutler when he learned he was getting traded to the Chicago Bears, and here's his picture. I'll put that up now. So, yeah, that's pretty much that. Props to the guys on the NFL GameFAQs message board for coming up with that. But they didn't put it in a video. They came up with the idea, though, so props to them. So that's all I got. I think Denver comes out the victor in this trade, but, Chicago really needs to do this. I understand why Chicago wanted to do this. They've been searching for a quarterback for about 40, 50 years and haven't been able to find it, so they were willing to do whatever it took to get this guy. And it may still not work out. We know he's a good quarterback. We saw in Denver that he was a very good quarterback, potentially. But in that Chicago system, I don't know if I see it. I just don't know. So we'll find out. Maybe Chicago has had really bad luck with quarterbacks, or maybe their system prevents quarterbacks from looking good. Who knows? We'll find out after this. If Orton breaks out in Denver and Cutler busts in Chicago, that'll tell us all we need to know. So I'm done. That's all I gotta say. I want to give props to Denver for getting a lot for a guy who demanded a trade. And, Chicago, I respect them doing this. I know why they did it. It could work out, but I'm a little wary about all this. Peace.